the more we practice yoga, the more we practice Tantra, the more deeper understandings we have of ourselves as spiritual beings, as in this, let's say, as much as we discover the silent depth of our being, the easier life actually gets, the more alive and magical things become, the easier it is to take on challenges in life. And yeah, interestingly, life provides actually really different challenges when you invite the depth of your being into everything. Hello and welcome. You are listening to A Walk in the Heart, a podcast about Tantra, psychology and spirituality. Join us as we explore what spiritual wisdom can offer to people like you and me. Thank you for being here. Welcome everyone to our first episode of our podcast, A Walk in the Heart. Quite exciting to be here with you today. I'm your host, Blandine Wegener, psychologist, yogini, Tantra teacher for over a decade, and I'm here with my co-host,
Uriel, also psychology, also Tantra teacher, now 2 decades on this path of Tantra.
We are both very excited to come to you from our base in Chiang Mai in Thailand, where we co-founded a school of yoga and Tantra, Mahasiddha Yoga. And over here in beautiful sunny Thailand, we host retreats and Tantra and esoteric yoga courses and much more. And before we get started with our episode today, which is basically an introduction to this podcast and for you to get to know us and why we are doing all of this, we want to invite you to help us out to like the podcast if you do, to like this episode, to leave a review rating wherever you are at, on what podcast provider you might find us. It really helps us to keep doing what we are doing, and of course will also boost our enthusiasm a bit to keep going. If you want, you can also find us online. Our website is tantrayogathailand.com. On Facebook we are called Tantra Yoga Chiang Mai, and you can also ask questions there, maybe inspire us with subjects that you wish us to talk about and so forth. But actually you don't even know yet what we are talking about in this podcast, so that's exactly why we are talking to you now, to get a bit of an understanding what this podcast is all about. So maybe we share with the listeners first of all why we started this podcast, why we got to do what we are doing, or what we are aiming to do. Maybe you want to give a little bit your viewpoint?
Sure. So basically our life consisted for both of us with a period of very intense spiritual practice. In Blandine's case, this stage was shorter, and then she started teaching quicker, and for me it took maybe a good 15 years before I started teaching. But it consisted in both of us with these periods. First, taking in the practice and just practicing many long hours and doing intensive retreats and just crystallizing some spiritual realizations inside through the intense practice of Tantra and meditation and yoga. And now our, let's say, what sparkles our heart, what gives us light in our eyes when we wake up in the morning, is this wish to share this message with people who are interested, with people who are open to genuine spirituality, who are open for spiritual practice, who are open for spiritual transformation, who are open for Tantra. And all this we will do in the light of psychology. Somehow, both of us being psychologists, we use psychology as a kind of bridge to make the ancient spiritual truth the ancient spiritual teachings and the spiritual practices, we make them accessible, we make them understandable for day-to-day life, using many tools that we learned in our qualification and in our practice as psychologists.
So the initial idea of creating this podcast came from we've been teaching for a while together, basically for like some 6 years, 5 years, 6 years. What is it?
Yeah, maybe 6, 5.5.
5.5 years. Well, we started already a bit before we came to Thailand, but anyways.
Sure.
From teaching a lot and also being a lot in contact with people who just start to flirt somehow with the path of spirituality, to somehow notice how valuable, even just for the very simple day-to-day activities, day-to-day struggles, challenges, how valuable it is to understand spiritual principles. And of course, for us and our practice, it has always been very clear that the more we practice yoga, the more we practice Tantra, the more deeper understandings we have of ourselves as spiritual beings, as in this, let's say, as much as we discover the silent depth of our being, the easier life actually gets, the more alive and magical things become, the easier it is to take on challenges in life. And yeah, interestingly, life provides actually really different challenges when you invite the depth of your being into everything. And we've noticed that when talking about these things, even to people who have not much to do with spirituality, that it is really inspiring for them and that it can really give a little meaningful impulse to their lives. And basically, we've been dedicating, for me, I started teaching maybe like 13 years ago. And then in the last 5.5 years together, one of our big purposes is to of course, lead people onto the spiritual path that really want to dedicate themselves to that, but also in whatever way possible to bring a little token of light, a little more love, a little bit more understanding to people in the world and with whatever they might be struggling with. And I feel this is quite an overlap between psychology and spirituality. Of course, high-level spirituality where you're really going for total liberation, enlightenment, and I don't know what, it requires a different type of dedication. But especially the starting moments of spirituality, and then the, let's say, ending moments of psychology, where psychology is not so much just to fix something that is broken inside, but where it even becomes a tool to really become self-aware, which psychology is also a lot about, to really start reflecting on the depths of your being, to assume responsibility for your actions, to grow, self-growth, and so forth. They overlap very much with the beginning points of spirituality. And I feel this is somehow where the podcast places itself. And we thought, well, what better thing to do than to get this particular message out on a bit of a broader medium. Maybe we just recently started to be a little bit more active on YouTube, and we noticed how helpful it is for people to just hear spiritual principles and viewpoints that can be applied in day-to-day life. And then what actually happened is that ever since we built our Amrita resort ashram, beautiful place here in Thailand, which we all hope you come visit one day, you can check out pictures on our website, we started to take walks, also inspired by the whole corona thing. What else to do? Either you meditate or you walk in nature. It's the two things you can really do in this time. And as we usually do, we would speak about spiritual principles, about things that we've discovered in meditation. We share about our practice with each other and about our relationship, about our concerns, maybe difficulties, wonderful, rewarding moments, and so forth. And we noticed, well, you know what? It would be maybe really nice for people to sometimes be able to listen, to somehow hear also the struggles of a spiritual seeker, also the rewards of spiritual practice, the simple little things that sometimes we exchange. And maybe I tell you, you know what, I had this huge revelation, but actually it's so down to earth and it became so practical in XYZ, and how I look in the mirror in the morning, or how I relate to my mother, or something like that, right? So then we were like, maybe this is actually ideal. We both love to speak, and we both love to yammer into a microphone and have everybody take part in our journey. So why not share it in such a context where it can really be meaningful for people, and where we can also sometimes just play a bit and try out. You had this wonderful idea of maybe trying out and just putting a principle on the table that we haven't really dove into. And then to take a deep dive and to say, okay, so how does this look from different traditions? How do we feel this, I don't know, state of detachment, for example? What does it really mean to become detached? What's the difference between detachment and indifference? How does it manifest in our lives? What are the temptations that the mind is putting when we try to become detached? Stuff like that can be interesting to hear from people that actually practice it. So it's not just a scholarly approach, but it really becomes very, very alive in that way. So we've been covering already a little bit why we started this podcast, and maybe we can dive a bit more into sort of what awaits people. What do you want for people to get in this podcast? What do you envision?
Yes, so I envision a few cycles of people. There's a group of people...
Circles, you mean?
Circles, yeah. There's a group of people that search for genuine spirituality, that search to dedicate themselves to spirituality. These people normally already practice something, whatever, and they are searching for a deeper dive. There are people that want to devote themselves to spirituality, and yet they need some tools more. People who already meditate or pray or practice some kind of martial art or some kind of school of consciousness, school of awakening, something, and they need a little bit either more tools or just a kind of more inspiration, more appetite to hear the story of somebody else who is also, trying to focus in meditation for so-and-so 5-6 hours a day for 20 years and meeting that challenge, which is not the same challenge you have in the first year, but it's still a challenge after 20 years to really focus there for this amount of hours. So the first circle of people would be people that want to give themselves to spirituality, and they either need some knowledge, tools, or just some general inspiration. And then the second circle would be people that want spirituality as a side dish in their life. People that want to mainly focus on a worldly life and whatever worldly social achievements, whatever is there, but still want to take spirituality as a serious side dish. And then they can be also enriched, how to make a relationship spiritual. That's a dead end for so many people. They're very nice in the meditation room, and then they meet their lovers and they look like two demons there, or two people with a back pain, when they meet each other after some years of a relationship. How to deal with that, because this is something that Tantra fills the void. It doesn't, many people practice this form of meditation or that form of spiritual practice, but what to do in the bedroom and what to do when you have a romantic dinner, and how to make a relationship spiritual. So this would be one of the most essential messages, and this is something that's not that available in the literature, and this is something that we as a couple and we as a community, maybe 10,000 people in our spiritual community under our teachers, have been taking very seriously now for like 5 decades that this school exists. So this is something quite unique that we can offer in the podcast. And then there's a third circle of people who are generally not interested in spirituality, but are interested in some kind of growth and transformation. And even for that, tackling certain, how to deal with a particular emotion. What is anger made of? There are very particular ingredients. What to do with anger? If you explode is bad, if you suppress is bad. What do you do with anger? Yeah, there is a way in Tantra alchemy. Anger becomes a fuel for a higher spiritual state. How to do that? You don't need to have any kind of spiritual beliefs or any kind of spiritual interest, but still you want to manage your anger, you want to manage your um, whatever it is there, your sadness, your longing,
Jealousy,
your jealousy, your
pride.
sense, your pride, your sense of purpose. You want to manage it well. So we take those principles from the Tantras and from ancient spiritual texts and even from modern spiritual masters, and then we aim to keep the message very alive, but give it in terms that are digestible. Because for most people, especially if they're not into spirituality, they read the text and it doesn't make sense. Well, it does make sense if you play with it, and our role is more of an interpretation. Okay, look, we practice what's there in the text. I've been angry for 20 years using that method. And I have practiced, and anger in my being transforms to that when I do that.
Mm.
Anger transforms to clarity when I do that. Sadness transforms to longing and to divine longing when I do that, and so forth. So managing, and let's say, pain or suffering turns into growth when I do that.
Mm.
So that would be relevant information for just about anyone that's interested, at least in transformation or at least in getting to know yourself better. So this is the message we've spread. I mean, there was maybe, I would say, something between 3,000 to 5,000 people that passed here in Mahasiddha in these 5-6 years that we are here. And we've seen all these three circles of people, and somehow doing back and forth and doing quite many retreats and hundreds of classes and workshops, we somehow saw how the message passes, and we got feedback from them. We played. We had a very nice playground to people from all over the world where we experimented, giving the message like this and giving the message like that, and seeing somehow the reactions of the people and the questions of the people, so that we can adapt this message so that it's accessible, because the spiritual message is wonderful and it's valuable for everyone. And having this experiment here in Chiang Mai, we somehow trained to make that message accessible for quite vast circles of people. But if you are not interested in spirituality, if you are not interested in having spirituality even as a side dish, you're not interested to get to know yourself, and you're not interested in transformation, there will be nothing here. No gossip, no movies, no news, no I don't know what.
Maybe spiritual movies sometimes.
Spiritual movies. But if those four interests aren't there, then this podcast would be boring. Maybe you enjoy the sound of Blandine's voice, which is just beautiful per se, but aside from that, it wouldn't bring much value. This is the essence of what we want to bring across.
Yeah. What I would like to offer in the episodes that are about to come, maybe also for you to understand what we'll be doing structurally, I would like definitely to take some of our lecture materials that we have been producing a lot of, and to bring some spiritual subjects to you that are somehow prepared and well presented in the frame of a lecture, and then to comment a little bit, give a bit of an intro, outro, and so forth. I would like to have sometimes people for interviews when it is relevant on the subjects that Uriel already introduced, and also, of course, to, well, not so much interview each other, but just like give comments on various spiritual subjects. And I would very much like to cover a variety of things, from more scholarly aspects of maybe talking about some ancient traditions that you're more interested in, may it be the Mahavidya system or the Kala Chakra or something that we can comment on and give some pointers about, and sort of give a more tantric, more practical viewpoint upon these essential teachings, so they are not so dry, but they become alive and can, even if they are complex, already be approached even by a beginner. And also to just talk about, as you said, just the mundane problems that we carry around, and what is the spiritual approach of solving them. Like, okay, you deal with jealousy, what can you do about it? What about the state of love? How can you produce more love inside of you, become more active in loving, and so forth. And yeah, in this way to bring a good amount of spiritual content to all of you guys. And of course, if you have some inspirations, also questions and answers will probably be something we'll be doing quite a bunch. There's already a bunch of questions from our community that they would like us to answer. And if you have inspirations for things that you would like us to talk about, we'll be very, very happy to present that to you. So we can't wait for this wonderful journey to start with all of you, to have this interesting podcast and to share with each other meaningful talks, meaningful considerations, meaningful testimonies of practice, and in that way inspire our spiritual journey to each other. And this will be the end of our first little intro segment where you get to know a bit what we are doing. And we hope to talk to you very soon.
Thanks for being here. And we're looking forward to have a wonderful inner journey together.
So guys, thank you so much for listening. And always remember, first love,
then do.
We hope to be in your ears soon again. Finally, we invite you once more to give a like, to give a subscribe, to leave a review, to rate this podcast in a favorable, wonderful way, please. It really helps us to keep doing this. And of course, also feel free to visit our website, tantrayogathailand.com. You find us on Facebook as Mahasida Yoga. Yeah, there you find our email and all the different contacts to ask us things and to exchange in this way. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.